Hello?
Hello, Ashlee?
Yeah,
Yes, this is Izzy from MMA Jam Live. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. It's an honor having you on. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes out of your Friday night to chat with us here.
No problem.
Okay, well, let's get right into it. Your first amateur fight was back on October 23rd, 2010. At what point before or after that fight did you realize that fighting was something you wanted to do?
That I wanted to do or wanted to do professionally? What do you mean?
At what point before or after your first amateur fight did you realize that fighting was something you liked doing and that you wanted to pursue long term?
Well, I mean, I've been doing, contact sports or combat sports. I mean, I've wrestled my whole life, since I was in high school and college. So it was an easy transition from wrestling into MMA. The striking aspect was new, but it still was something that I felt at home. And, I knew from the training of MMA that I really liked it. And, after that first amateur fight, it just solidified that, even being in the cage with all the, the pressure and all the atmosphere, it just adds to it. And every fight since then, it's just, added on to the, how I, really feel about MMA. And I just it keeps growing. My love for the sport keeps growing since that first fight.
Now you mentioned you did wrestling as when you were younger. Now, what was it like being in a world that's predominantly ran by men, especially at that stage? Like, how did they take you in with open arms, or did you struggle as a female to fit in?
I was really lucky in high school to have a team and a bunch of coaches that were not the normal kind of male chauvinistic group of guys. But I had heard some real horror stories in high school from other girls that were on the wrestling teams nearby, and coaches just not giving them a chance or teammates doing awful things to them. But I just got really lucky, and I went to Ukiah High School, really small town in Northern California, and my teammates, at first they kind of gave me the cold shoulder, but then I did have to prove myself. I had to work hard and start winning matches, but pretty soon after that, they opened their arms to me, and I was one of the guys, basically.
Man, that's awesome, because I don't, where I grew up in New York, it wasn't like that. Like, it was unheard of. In fact, we didn't have one female that was even allowed to be on a wrestling team. I know that sounds bad, but I think that's the reality of the situation in a lot of different states at the time.
Yeah, definitely. It was not very big when I started. But it was, in high school and even in college, it was the number one growing sport for women. And I think when I was in college, there was 5 collegiate teams in the U.S. Now I believe there's, around 20, if not more than that.
Wow, that's incredible. Now you fought as an amateur at 9 times in the span of about 2 years. Did you initially plan on fighting that many times as an amateur before deciding to go pro?
No, I always comment and say that my amateur career was a real roller coaster of a career. I actually fought 7 times in 5 months in my amateur career, and then took a little break, and then fought 2 more times to finish off my career. And it really taught me a lot of lessons, and I wouldn't change any of it. There's 4 straight wins, there's a couple losses in a row, and there's a belt that I won, and then there's a knockout, getting knocked out. And every one of those situations, it's made me the fighter I am right now, and I'm doing really well. And, each one of those fights, even the losses, taught me something. So, I wouldn't change it. But, I mean, to answer your question, no, I don't think it was a goal to just say I'm going to fight as much as I can, as fast as I can. But, even my coach back then warned me. He said, you got to really be careful taking fights so fast. But I'm definitely one of those kind of people that you tell me the stove's hot, I definitely have to touch it for myself,
Now, in terms of people handle losses a certain way. Some people take it a lot better than others. Would you say that, that you're able to find sort of like a silver lining in any of your losses, the way you just learn valuable lessons each and every time?
Oh, yeah. That's what I mean, by saying that I wouldn't change any of my losses. It's, it doesn't seem silver at the time. You know, it seems rusty and awful and, you know, just sucky. But, you know, later you go back and you sit and you think and you reflect and you realize that that probably happened for a reason, and you go back and you change your technique or your mentality or whatever it is, and you get better, you know. I mean, I think at least the best fighters do that, you know, and if you're not doing that, you're probably going to hit a plateau at some point in your career and stop learning, you know. But I'm happy with my losses, as weird as that sounds, you know. I don't want to have any more, you know, knock on wood. I think now's the time for me to just, you know, keep gaining momentum every fight I go. But the ones that I did have in my amateur career really, really shaped me.
Well, it's good to see that. I mean, you know, I know it's difficult anytime you're coming off a loss to really, you know, at the time you're like, okay, this sucks and whatever, but it's good that you were able to take a valuable lesson for it and use it to your benefit as a learning experience. Now, in terms of your decision to go pro, what factors did you take into consideration when weighing your options?
Well, I mean, there's quite a few things. I think that it was important to me and my coach at the time to make sure I had, you know, gotten my feet wet enough times, you know, actually entered the cage, wrapped up, you know, felt the whole experience, you know, enough times to where when I was in the, you know, on the pro level that I didn't have jitters or any of those kind of feelings, you know, I felt at home in the cage. To, you know, skill level, you know, I mean, it doesn't matter. You could have 20 fights, but just still, you know, not be learning and just still be on, you know, the bottom level technique-wise. And, you know, I wanted to make sure that I felt like I could hang with the girls on the pro level. And, you know, I mean, I guess those are probably the two biggest things, you know, just making sure that I had that cage time and making sure that technique-wise, you know, I was ready to bang with the big girls.
And it actually paid dividends, too, because you made your pro debut at, you know, CFA 10 back on March 2nd, 2013. Now, my question is, did you notice any difference between fighting a pro fight as opposed to what you've been used to on the amateur circuit?
I mean, to be honest, I've competed for so long, you know, through wrestling and amateur MMA and now professional MMA that, you know, once you kind of get your athletic mindset going, you know, it's kind of almost like you go on auto, you know. It might be a different game plan each fight, but, you know, I've got the same mentality, you know, I've got the same kind of rituals, and I just go in there and kind of do what I train every day to do, you know. So the only differences were they were minor, you know. This time, you know, okay, I'm on the pro level, and now there's a whole lot more people watching, or this time I'm getting paid, or, you know, this time I can actually throw knees or elbows, or a couple different things, you know, technique-wise. But at the end, you know, 9 times amateur-wise getting into the cage didn't feel any different, especially since the first professional opponent that I had was actually someone that I fought in my amateur career, so it's kind of like a flashback almost, you know, and it just didn't feel that different. And, you know, I think I'm a competitor at heart, and so when it's time to fight, I just put my game face on and go.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but, you know, you did fight in Tough Enough, and lately there's been a lot of buzz around them, and they're becoming a bigger regional show. So it's not like, I mean, the move to CFA wasn't, I mean, it was significant, obviously, because it was your pro debut, but it wasn't like, you know, you've been there before. You fought on big amateur, you know, at big amateur shows, so it probably didn't affect you as much.
Yeah, you know, I really, really have to thank the people at Tough Enough out in Vegas, you know, Jeff and Barry, rest in peace, and Carrie as well. They were and are great, great people. You know, I think I made my transition from, you know, Camo amateur, you know, organization here in California, and then going on to Vegas, and then going on to CFA. It was just like, you know, little perfect steps, you know, like boop, boop, boop. I don't know how to explain it. It was just, you know, it felt right, and now, you know, here I am in the World Series of Fighting, and, you know, maybe after I'm done with them, maybe I'll reach a higher level, you know what I mean? Not to get ahead of myself, but I feel like I'm on the right path and I'm doing everything right. And those people at Tough Enough, they were the perfect step at the time.
Well, there's nothing wrong with getting your ahead of yourself. I'm ready to be the next Ariel Helwani, so there's that, you know.
There you go. Put your goals
that's
high. That's good.
That's my ambition.
Goals,
I want nothing. I want nothing less than being Ariel Helwani. So, you know, I'm coming. Now,
you want to be better than him, though, right?
yeah, no, yep, exactly. Now, you fought, obviously the most high-profile fight of your young career was, against Fallon Fox back on, October 12th of last year. Not too long before that fight, you found out, obviously, that she was a transgendered female. What were your thoughts when that news came out, and did you ever consider dropping out of that tournament?
Yeah, it was a delicate situation at the time, a lot of people ask this question, and here it is, 8 months later. But the way that it happened, we entered the tournament assuming that everyone was a natural-born woman, and everybody who advanced, had, obviously they won their fight, and then after that fight is when the news came out, or the news broke, and I had to do some inner thinking, some soul searching, because I knew that it was a really delicate situation. I didn't want to offend certain communities. I didn't want to, back out of something that I felt that I could win. I didn't want to let my coaches down. I didn't want, the Women's MMA Society down. I really wanted to make the right move. So I thought really long and hard about it, but, I can honestly say there was at no point where I really wanted to back out, or even really thought about it, because I weighed the pros and cons, and it came down to the fact that I really believed in myself, and I knew that I could win the fight. So, I stuck in there regardless of all the controversial issues, and, honestly, what happened, and it was a good choice for me.
I don't think that people understand the ramifications of your decision. It wasn't simply just, hey, you either do it or you don't. Because, I know I'm going to get a lot of crap for this, but if it was me, like, if I'm in there and I'm fighting a transgendered male, a person that was born a female and took testosterone now as a male, I wouldn't be able to do it. And I know that people are going to get on me for that, but, I commend you for being able to make that decision, because personally, I wouldn't have been able to do it if I was in your shoes, and I don't think people understand how difficult a decision that really was, despite the fact that it was, a nice payday, a tournament for the title. I'm glad it worked out for you, but I commend you for making that really difficult decision.
To be honest, it really wasn't that hard. Like I said, there was never a point where I wanted to back out. The pros just completely outweighed the cons, and it just there was really just one con, and we were just wondering, is this going to be an unfair fight? But at the end of the day, it was worth it to give it a shot.
Definitely. Now back in October, you mentioned in an interview with MMA Junkie that you were getting unwanted support and messages from fans. Did that put any unnecessary pressure on you at all?
Everyone keeps asking me, like, how did you deal with the pressure? But, I didn't feel pressure, to be honest. I felt, because I've taken my MMA career really seriously since my first amateur fight till now. Like, I just really want to perform, and I love to win. And I just, kind of was really able to block out all the negativity. But it really did hurt me when I had to read some of the negative comments, because, as I've tried to say in other interviews, there's a big difference between somebody wanting you to win, because they don't like your opponent, and someone wanting you to win because they really believe in you and support you. And I was getting, like, all this kind of, like, hate mail, like, towards Fallon, but, like, love mail, I don't know what you would call it, towards me. And they were saying these derogatory things, but then, like, putting a positive spin on it, like, I'm not even going to say it, but it was really hard for me, and I try not to, like, retweet those things, or I even went on record a couple times to say, if you guys could just please use the right pronouns, just be PC with it, and it was just kind of a headache, and, I tried to make the best of the situation, but I didn't, at the end of the day, when it came down to fight, I didn't really feel too much pressure, as far as, like, in that sense, I felt the pressure of, like, wanting to win, the belt and wanting, the prize money and, all that, but the Twitter, it didn't really affect me that much, to be honest.
Well, it's crazy, and obviously I'm not going to repeat some of the stuff you were told, but I happened to read a couple of those messages, and it was, by all means, I mean, we're all going to have our different opinions on whether or not we agree with that personal choice that Fallon did, made, to go from being a male to female. I mean, that's her decision, her choice. We might not agree with it, but some of the things you were receiving was just downright despicable. Like, it was just disgusting. I mean, we tend to forget that in the bigger scheme of things, she is a human being at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I was just, and that's what I was really trying to convey when I responded to some of the tweets, that people need to realize that, she's a human at the end of the day, and, regardless of, whatever choices she makes, she still doesn't deserve to be hated on like that.
Exactly. And my last question on Fallon is, how has your overall opinion on her changed since that fight, or do you still feel as though she shouldn't be fighting women?
To be honest, I'm a little disappointed in her in the sense that she's really or she did at the time, she really backlashed, I think, or she lashed out at me for my own personal opinions. When in all actuality, I was probably the nicest, opponent that she ever had, and probably dealt with the situation the most professional that anyone had ever had. And, regardless of my own personal opinions, she still went on record to say that I was, I can't, I'm not sure exactly what the quote was, but she just kind of really made me out to be the bad guy in the situation. And, I feel a little sad that we can't just be friends now, because as silly as it sounds, I really enjoy fighting someone, because I respect all my opponents, and I would just like to be friends with that person afterwards, win or lose, But as far as my personal opinion on the topic, whether or not transgenders should be allowed to fight, it has not changed, I've gone on record to say, and will continue to say, that as soon as there's adequate, scientific information showing that, the transgender person doesn't have a significant advantage, then, yeah, okay, maybe then, but in my last fight with Fallon, no one tested her testosterone level, and actually when they were approached about it, the commission kind of got all Twitter-pated, and they threatened to scrap the fight. So we said, okay, don't test her, we'll fight, you know what I mean? Because it's just, I really wanted to fight regardless if her testosterone levels were off the charts or not. But, it's just a weird situation, and to answer your question, no, my opinion has not changed.
Well, one of the things that continues to bother me is that regardless of whether, obviously she classifies herself as a female, and I'm not going to disrespect that, but my thing is that, if you're born a male, your body's just going to be dramatically different. I mean, you're born with a certain amount of testosterone, which is going to be significantly higher than that of a woman. So it's like, I know I'm not going to pretend I know what I'm talking about, being a doctor or anything, but, obviously you're going to take a lot of estrogen to offset the effects of the testosterone and that, but to me, like, where it all went downhill was that she tried to justify it by saying, hey, look, the fighter who beat me says I have an unfair advantage. Now, just because you defeated her doesn't mean she doesn't have that unfair advantage. So I think people try to justify things in a loss. I mean, the fact that she lost all of a sudden justifies the fact that she was born a man, she's a woman now, and now she's fighting other women despite being born a man. So I hate when people try to justify a big negative like that with something. They try to put a positive spin on it. Hey, she beat me, so how the hell can I have an unfair advantage? Makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you on that. Just because I did beat her does not mean that she doesn't have an unfair advantage. I try and explain it to people in the sense that, if the bigger, stronger person always won the fight, then you would see a bunch of huge bodybuilders, knocking out all these awesome, professional fighters. But that's not the way it is. It's the person who's got the better game plan, the person who's got, a better fight strategy, the person who's got, better mentality, and the person who's got better cardio and just technique. And just there's a million reasons why one fighter who might have an advantage in certain areas can still, lose to someone. And it's just like it's a delicate, weird situation, and it's really a gray area, to be honest.
Yeah, I completely agree, and we'll leave that at that. As you mentioned earlier, you recently signed with World Series of Fighting. Congratulations, by the way. I'm very happy for you.
Thank you.
Okay, now it also mentioned that you were dropping down to 135. What does signing with a well-respected organization like them mean to you?
I'm just super excited to be on the roster. Unfortunately, I'm the only bantamweight on the roster right now, but they're actively seeking opponents for me, or just women in general, to add to the roster. And I can't wait. I can't. It's been a little while since they signed me, so I'm just really on pins and needles, and I'm just really excited to make my debut. And I'm hoping to fight for them June 21st in San Jose, California. When they have their show up there, they're looking for an opponent right now. So hopefully, any 135 women professional fighters out there hear this and want to take that fight, that'd be awesome. But it meant for me, like I told you before, that I was on the right path, on the right track, and every step that I've taken in my career so far, I feel like I'm making just all the right choices. From my amateur fights, going on to Tough Enough, CFA, taking the Fallon fight, winning the tournament, now signing with World Series, going to get some more fights under my belt, and then who knows what's next for me, and World Series for me, it's a really good home for me right now.
Well, I think your career trajectory is just phenomenal. The fact that, as you mentioned, you're just taking the right fights at the right time, going with the right organizations, and you actually make my job a hell of a lot easier than it always is. I mean, you said you wanted to fight in June. As far as I understand that they don't have any other, women's bantamweights or anything, but ideally, who would your opponent be? Who would you like to fight in June for World Series of Fighting?
I'll never call anyone out. I feel like, that's not, I don't know. I don't know the word you want to use. I'm not that kind of fighter. I'll never call anyone out, but I can tell you what kind of fighter I want to fight. I can tell you I want to fight a whole fighter that is well established, someone who's got a decent amount of fights, someone who's going to be a challenge for me, someone that probably the MMA world might say, can she beat her? Because I've realized that I thrive off that controversy a little bit, and off the pressure and all that. And I train harder, and I dream about it. I eat, sleep, and just everything about the fight. So I want someone. I don't want a bum. I don't want someone who's 0-1 or 1-0 or whatever. I want someone who people are going to be excited to watch the fight because they don't know what's going to happen, because they might even doubt me, and I don't mind being the underdog, and I don't mind when people doubt me because I think I strive on that.
Definitely, and I really appreciate your stance. Before we let you go, Ashlee, and I know I'm going to regret this, we have a couple of fans, and they have an opportunity. We have a chat room. They have an opportunity to ask you whatever question they want me to ask you. And can you believe that the question that someone wants me to ask you is, who would win in a fight, a crocodile or a gorilla? I'm so sorry about that. Yeah, a gorilla or a crocodile.
Oh man, what kind of people do you have in your chat rooms?
I have no idea.
Man, that's funny. That reminds me. There's a question. It was like, who would win between a grilled cheese sandwich and a taco? I'm drawing a blank on where that comes from. I think it's from a movie. But anyway, okay. Seriously, between a crocodile, gorilla, I'm definitely gonna have to say the gorilla, just because he's got a little more, the agility. He's able to move around. The crocodile is just kind of going to be nipping at his feet, and I think the gorilla is just going to be able to just, hammer monkey fist, some Mark Munoz fists on him, even if he did bite his leg. So we'll go with the gorilla on that one.
You know what? You just probably made him the happiest fan ever, because he got on my case for picking the crocodile, and I wanted to go gorilla, but I went crocodile, and he's going to be very happy. We actually have one more question. we have a question from a fan named Ruben, and I promise we'll let you go after this.
No problem.
He wants to know, what do you work out to? What kind of songs? What's your favorite workout jam?
You know, I have a huge, like, plethora of music that I work out to. I love music. I always, tell myself that I wasn't an athlete, I'd probably be a rock star. But I work out to a lot of punk music, My jiu-jitsu coach, if it's a Tuesday or a Thursday, he puts on, like, dubstep and house, which, I don't mind, but that's just what's playing in our gym. But if, say, I'm going for my own run, on my own time, I definitely listen to, like, a lot of punk music. Right now, especially since I've been able to meet him, I've been listening to a lot of Social D, and that's one band, but there's times, my favorite bands probably are Rancid. My last walkout T-shirt was a Misfits T-shirt. I'm a huge Misfits fan. There's just tons. I like the Distillers a lot. I mean, tons and tons of music.
I'm sure the fan is definitely happy you answered. Thank you for answering that. Lastly, where can your fans find you on Facebook and or Twitter?
Oh yeah, I would love it if definitely if you guys wanted to follow me on any kind of social media. I got it all. It's Ashlee MMA1 for my Twitter, and that's Ashlee with 2 E's, no Y. And then Facebook, you go on there, and it's Ashlee Evans-Smith at Facebook.com, and then you even have Instagram, and that's the same as Twitter. It's Ashlee MMA, but with no one. And follow me.
Definitely. And lastly, based on your taste in music, one of your fans says you have epic taste in music.
Is that a question or just a statement?
No, your statement. You have an epic taste in music. It's a statement.
Oh, thank you. Tell them to follow me. I really, if I'm not training, if I'm not fighting, I'm out at concerts, I'm out at shows, and I like to post a lot about music and new bands and old bands and all that.
Awesome stuff. And everybody that's listening, everybody's in the chat room is listening live, so they hear everything you're saying, and I'm sure they're already following you, by the way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, well, Ashlee, thank you. It was a tremendous honor. I know I told you 20 minutes, but I was having so much fun that I lost track of time. Thank you so much. It was a tremendous honor, and I wish you nothing but the best.
No problem. Have a good time.
You too. Take
Bye.
care.